I'm Michael Monroe, and this poem's called Captive Audience. I write my poems for the poor and destitute in the ruins of row homes and paint-peeling park benches, backs pinned to hardwood and concrete. I write my poems for the homeless and friendless, parched by the sun of the dwindling day, freezing in the chill of the callous night, as the cold slices skin like razors, and indifference multiplies like malignant cells. I write my poems for the working people, slaving in the heart of the cavernous foundry, humping crates in eternity's shipyard, farming our food and harvesting life, laying bricks at the noise-drenched construction site, like Sisyphus pushing his boulder up that lonely hill in hell. I write my poems for the heartbroken and loveless, alone in spring while youthful lovers dance with smiles stretched across their luminous faces, unintentionally mocking with each chipper step, while others feel passed over like unwanted items alone on a grocery store shelf. I write my poems for the used and abused, lying alone in beds like deserts next to phantom spaces, the ghosts of former loves, blankets wet with tears siphoned out like blood through the needles of rejection as they howl their despair to the moon. I write my poems for the hated masses, for everyone who's been the butt of jokes or the target of racial slurs like buckshot that rips through skin with deadly humor. I write my poems for the underdogs who've been filed away in a cabinet of ignorance, in the basement of discounted contributions, or murdered in a bitter split second, lives ended in hanging from trees, because of their skin color or their beliefs, or just being who they were born to be. I write my poems for the aging sages, the widows and the widowers, brushed aside after a century's buildup of residual heartbreak, like layers of rock in an ancient canyon sliced through by time's indifferent river. I write my poems for the diseased and broken, wading through burning monotony that goes on like bitter winter days, IV tubes hanging from limp arms, eyes fixed on humming televisions beneath fluorescent lights, like specimens under microscopes, helpless like newborns. I write my poems for the prisoners, living out their lives in rooms like closets and rows of chicken coop cells, dreams locked behind steel bars. They traded their lives for liquor store cash, and now they pay the price as the years disappear. I write my poems for the desperate addicts, looking for fixes to fill the holes that their souls are leaking out from, as smoke and poison snake through their skeletal bodies that once shone with childhood smiles, and now curtains of despair are pulled over once bright eyes. I write my poems for the hungry and thirsty, standing helpless in life's searing deserts, bellies swollen and eyes crying darkness, where the wells are dry like sun-bleached bones, and the food is sparse like stars in daylight. I write my poems for the discouraged dreamers whose hope was swept up into the dustpan of competition and thrown into a wastebasket full of crumpled poems, broken sculptures, faded paintings, and unsung songs. I write my poems for the deserted citizens, ignored by the leaders they trusted their lives with, who've traded their visions of a peaceful world for golden calves and fistfuls of power, and the people woke up one nightmare morning to find that their rights had been stolen during the silent night. I write my poems for the steadfast soldiers, shielding us on the world's front lines in sandstorm deserts and treacherous mountains, taking our bullets for us bravely, while we try to sort out the mess we've made of the world's fragile balance. I write my poems for the frightened boys, unsure why the bullets are coming their way, dealing out death with icy indifference, hands shaking as they trudge through the blood, but they fight through the confusion for their friends and families. I write my poems for the wary skeptics, who've been turned away from religion by humans pushing their selfish agendas. I hope one day they'll see the Jesus I see, and not the Pharisees hiding in sterile white buildings, hoarding money like ancient misers, writing laws where souls once were, and replacing love with pointing fingers. One day I'll die, stricken by disease, or I'll be shot down like a crippled horse, or I'll be locked in a cell where I'll etch the days into the walls, and I'll be like a snowflake in a blizzard that's settled into warm, calm waters. But my words will be beacons flickering like candles, helping hands stretched through the murky swamps of life, twinkling like constellations. So I have a message for everyone now and in the future, the addicted, broken-hearted, imprisoned, destitute, poor and forgotten. Long ago, I was you, and I made it through.